Hello, my name's Tim Fisher and welcome to my studio. I'm pleased to have been asked to work with Sennelier Oil Pastels by the online art store Art Supplies. Interestingly, these colours were originally formulated by a request from Pablo Picasso. He was looking for a paint that would free him from any technical constraints and something that could be applied to any surface without any previous preparation. Upon his request, 48 colours were produced. This was during Picasso's grey period, and so 10 were some lovely shades of grey, some of which I still use today. There are now 120 colours within the range, which all offer excellent light stability. They're simple to use and perfect for those who might be bothered by dust from chalk pastels. This is a superior quality oil pastel, which is ideal for large paintings or smaller studio projects. Not to be confused with chalk pastels, these are made from a binder of oil and wax. They never harden or crack, they're acid free and non-yellowing. The texture is soft and creamy, which allows for ease of blending and mixing on the painting surface. These pastels contain a generous amount of high quality pigment, which allows for good coverage and brightness. One of the real benefits of Sennelier oil pastels is that they're so soft they can be blended with your finger. This is sometimes difficult with other brands, and this is one of the reasons I like them so much. One of the things I want to talk to you about is the packaging. This is quite clever. Basically, on the wrapper is divided into a series of sections, and they're notched, so you can peel off the end of the stick and then break it off, and then you've got a stick that you can work with. What I'm going to show you now are some strokes that you can do with the pastels. This one is called a side stroke. You can work oil pastels on almost any surface. I've got quite a collection of different surfaces here. This is illustration board, gesso mount covered panel, and even this stuff, OSB orientated strand board. It's got quite a texture on the surface, but oil pastels go onto this surface really well, and you can get some really exciting paintings by applying it to this type of surface. So going back to the strokes, we've done the side stroke. One of the other strokes you can do is a very fine stroke. What I'll do, I'll swap to a blue so you can see it on the camera more easily. And basically we just work off the edge of the pastel to create a finer line. One of the other ways you can work with oil pastels is you can roll the pastel in your fingers. If you wanted to create a fine network of branches or twigs, you can just roll these in your fingers and let that appear on the surface. The surface I'm working on here, this is Picture Framer's mount card. This is a nice low-cost surface that takes oil pastel really well. One of the other things you can do with oil pastels is you can work one oil pastel over another. This is known as scumbling. So if I take this red, I can work that straight over the other surface, and this oil pastel's got such good covering power that it's almost completely obliterated the pastel underneath. What we can do now, we can take a scalpel and we can lift out what we've just applied. This is called sgraffito. So we're actually exposing the colours that are underneath by scraping out what we've just applied. This is almost like a form of scraper board really, and it's a really satisfying way of working if you want to get the maximum out of your pastels. As the layers build up, it does become more difficult to apply colour, and one technique I use is something called dashing, and you literally dash pigment onto what you've already applied, and this will allow more oil pastel to go on top of the painting surface. Other things we can do with pastels, I'm going to swap surfaces now. This is a canvas covered board, and this is a super surface to work on with oil pastels, but you do find when you want to blend your colours that the texture of the canvas can actually make your fingers a little bit sore. So this is another way of blending that you can do. And if we wanted to create a line of trees, for example, in the distance, I'm just going to put some cinnabar green on, and then I'm going to put some burnt umber in there as well. If we take one of these cup-shaped colour shapers, we can literally shape what we've just applied, and we can almost draw with the shaper, so we're getting this lovely effect of maybe distant trees or anything like that. The other thing we can do, we can have closer foliage by applying this is the burnt umber onto the surface, and then we can work into that with the colour shaper and get this lovely foliage effect by just working around the edges. We can also come back to that and sgraffito out and just suggest the structure of the tree at the base there. So that's another way that you can use this system to blend with a colour shaper. I usually find when I apply two colours together and move them up and down, I call this mashing. This is mashing the colours together. Another thing you can do with oil pastels, which you can't really do with any other medium, is I call it notching. So we can actually take out little sections of oil pastel out of the stick, and then when we apply over the surface, we get this lovely notched effect as we pull it over the surface. Another thing you can do with oil pastels, you can use solvents. You can use turpentine, or this is Flow and Dry. This is a solvent normally used with oil painting to allow the paint to dry more quickly, and it does solubilize the paint to a certain extent as well. So if I just paint this onto the surface, as you can see, we can then stretch the paint out as it dilutes with the Flow and Dry. This is a brilliant method if you're painting skies or anything like that. You can really soften the landscape by adding a solvent into your sky. Another interesting thing you can do with oil pastels is something we call embossing. I'll go back to the mount card because this is a nice soft surface. We can impress a mark into the surface of the mount card, and then if we work an oil pastel over the top, it leaves behind the pattern that we've just made. Another thing we can do, we can print with the oil pastel. So if I take a bit of Hessian, like so, and a bit of black card, if I put oil pastel onto the Hessian, and then lay that on the black card, we can leave an impression on the surface. There's no limit to the different things you can use to create stencils or to make impressions on the surface. This is just a little bit of doily, and even with that you can just select parts of it and work oil pastel through the surface. So if you wanted to create a textured foreground or something like that, you could work the oil pastel through these shapes and patterns, and that can then go into the foreground of your painting. Just using my finger, because the oil pastels are so soft and pliable, we can just rub those through, and we're left with a really sharp pattern there. One of the things people say about oil pastels is it's just very difficult to get edges onto them. So one of the things I'm going to show you is how you get sharp edges. If I just do a very quick landscape, a bit of clouds coming over the horizon, and then if I use my masking tape, I can use the masking tape to create an horizon, like so, and then I can work back in with the blue. So this could be a seascape or something like that. And then if we wanted to add some yachts onto the surface, we could take this stencil and line that up with the horizon, and then just work a white pastel through it. And then we've got the yachts on the horizon. If you're doing something like working around a building, say we've got a building that's something like this, and we need to paint around that with oil pastels to put in a sky or something like that, we can use paper as a mask, and so we haven't got to worry about going over something we've already drawn. I wish I'd drawn my lines a bit straighter now. Doesn't matter. So there you see how you can work around a drawing of a property without going over the lines and the edges. One of the things you do find with oil pastels, especially the Sennelier ones, they are quite soft, and you tend to find that if you're working in a really warm room, or you're working outside on holiday in the sun and the heat, that your pastel can go quite soft, and it will deliver a lot of pigment onto the surface. One way I get around this in the studio is I have an ice pack, and what I do, I use that as a palette, and I literally lay my pastels on the surface, and that will chill them down, and that allows me to do really fine marks. Here's some pastels I've had in the freezer. It doesn't do them any harm, but you can... Oh, this one's got a double wrapper on it. Let's find another one. It doesn't do them any harm to chill them down, and you can use the edge to do really fine line work, and you can literally draw with the tip of the oil pastel if you wanted to do something that was loose but expressive at the same time. And this is an example of just how versatile Sennelier oil pastels are. There's no limit really to all the different techniques that you can use. I would suggest that if you try these, you just experiment, try different ideas and see what you can get out of them. I'm discovering new things to get from them all the time that I work with them, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic medium, and it's quite affordable because unlike chalk pastels, you don't need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tints, just a few colours, and you can mix them all together and create some really wonderful artwork. I really love the painterly marks and textures that can be achieved using Sennelier oil pastels. If you would like to try them too, then they're readily available from the online art store Art Supplies. This is where you'll find these materials and much more to help you create your own artistic vision. For anyone wishing to try oil pastels, in my opinion, Sennelier would be the best choice to choose. The ability of the colours to intermix means fewer sticks are required, which makes this an economical choice to make.